Imagine a time long ago, when many people were not free, they were forced to work and could not choose their own lives. In this difficult time, a very special hero named Harriet Tubman stepped forward. She was incredibly brave, with a heart full of courage and a spirit that shone brighter than any star. Harriet Tubman wasn't just a person. She was a light in the darkness, a conductor on a secret railway that led to freedom. Harriet Tubman became known as Moses, because, like the Moses in old stories, she led her people out of a land where they were held against their will. She didn't have a magical staff or special powers, but she had something even stronger, a deep belief that everyone deserved to be free. She risked her own life again and again to help others escape from slavery. Think of her as a fearless guide, always ready to face danger to help someone reach safety. Her story is one of amazing strength and kindness. She helped hundreds of enslaved people travel on the Underground Railroad, a secret network of paths, safe houses and helpful friends. It wasn't a real railroad with trains, but a hidden journey filled with hope and many challenges. Harriet was the main conductor, leading the way through forests, across rivers and past watchful eyes, always whispering words of encouragement and never giving up. She truly was a hero who made a huge difference in the lives of many people, guiding them to a place where they could finally live free. Before Harriet became the famous Moses, the brave conductor of the Underground Railroad, she was a small girl named Araminta Ross, or Minty for short. She was born in Maryland around 1822, into a world where her parents and siblings were also enslaved. From a very young age, Minty knew only hard work. Her days were not filled with playing games or going to school like other children. Instead, she was sent to labor in the fields. Imagine tiny hands pulling heavy loads, or a little body bent over rows of plants under the hot sun. Minty worked tirelessly, often from sunrise until sunset, doing tasks that were too much for a child. She helped with planting and harvesting crops like corn and potatoes, and she also had to care for babies. Sometimes, she even had to set traps for muskrats, which was a tough and dirty job. Her body ached, and she often felt tired, but her spirit was strong. Even though her life was full of hardship, Minty held onto a secret dream. As she looked up at the vast sky, especially at night when the stars twinkled brightly, she would think about freedom. She didn't know exactly what freedom felt like, but she imagined a place where she could make her own choices, where she wouldn't be told what to do every moment of every day. This dream was like a tiny spark inside her, growing bigger and brighter with each passing year. Even as she continued her hard work on the farm, she knew, deep in her heart, that there had to be something more than the life she was living. Minty's dream of freedom wasn't just a wish for an easier life. It was a deep need to escape the constant pain and fear that filled her days. Slavery was a cruel master, and Minty knew its harshness firsthand. She saw how families could be torn apart at any moment, with mothers, fathers, or children sold away to distant lands, never to be seen again. This fear of separation was a heavy cloud, always hanging over her head, a constant worry that she or someone she loved would be taken away forever. Beyond the emotional pain, Minty also suffered physical harm. When she was just a young girl, she was hit on the head with a heavy metal weight by an angry overseer. This terrible injury caused her problems for the rest of her life, including dizzy spells and sudden moments of falling asleep. Imagine living with such a wound, a constant reminder of the unfairness and cruelty of her world. This incident, among many others, showed her that her life, and the lives of all enslaved people, were not valued. She worked from dawn till dusk, often with barely enough food to fill her stomach or warm clothes to keep her from freezing in the winter. The threat of punishment was always present, hanging over her like a dark shadow. She couldn't read or write, as learning was forbidden for enslaved people, meaning she had no way to truly understand the world beyond her farm. These dangers and hardships made her dream of freedom burn even brighter. She knew in her heart that she had to escape, not just for herself, but for the hope of a better life, where she could be safe and truly free. The constant fear and suffering made Minty's decision clear. She had to escape. In 1849, after hearing she might be sold even further south, a place where slavery was even harsher, she knew it was time. She didn't have a map or a car, just her own 2 feet, a brave heart, and the wisdom of the natural world. She said goodbye to her family, knowing that staying meant a life of unending pain, and leaving meant a chance for true freedom. Her escape was a long, scary journey. She traveled mostly at night, hiding in the shadows of thick forests and swamps during the day. Every rustle of leaves, every distant dog bark, sent a shiver down her spine. She knew that if she was caught she would be beaten, or worse, sold away to a place from which there was no return. But Minty kept moving, step by painful step, fueled by her powerful dream. Her most important guide during those dark nights was the North Star. People had taught her that if she followed this bright star, it would always lead her north, towards freedom. With only the stars and her own courage she walked for days and nights. Sometimes, kind strangers, who were part of a secret network of helpers, would offer her food or a safe place to rest for a short time. Finally, after weeks of walking, hiding and hoping, she crossed into Pennsylvania, a free state. Imagine the feeling when she first stepped onto free land. The sun felt different, the air smelled different. She was no longer Minty, an enslaved girl, she was Harriet, a free woman. When Harriet finally reached Pennsylvania, the feeling of freedom was overwhelming. But even as she celebrated her own safety, her thoughts kept returning to the family and friends she had left behind. How could she truly be free if they were still suffering? It was then that she began to learn more about the amazing secret system that had helped her, the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad wasn't a real train with tracks and an engine. Instead, it was a secret network of people, paths, and safe houses. Imagine a hidden road through the wilderness, guided by whispered words and secret signals. The people who helped were called conductors, like Harriet would become. They guided freedom seekers from one safe place to another. These safe places were called stations, which could be barns, attics, cellars, or even hidden rooms in people's homes. The owners of these safe places were called station masters. The passengers were the enslaved people trying to escape. They traveled mostly at night, often on foot, hiding during the day. Sometimes, they rode in wagons under hay or in secret compartments. There were also stockholders, who were people who gave money, clothes, or food to help the travelers. Everyone involved knew it was very dangerous. If caught, they could be put in jail, fined, or even hurt. But they believed so strongly in freedom that they risked everything. Harriet listened carefully to every detail, learning how these brave people worked together to defy the cruel laws of the time. She knew then, with a powerful certainty, that she had to become a part of this amazing journey, not just as a passenger, but as a conductor. Harriet Tubman was now free, a feeling she had yearned for her whole life. Yet, that feeling of pure joy was mixed with a heavy heart. She knew that her family and friends were still trapped in Maryland, enduring the very hardships she had escaped. The thought of them suffering while she was safe was unbearable. She wrestled with this feeling for a while, knowing full well the immense dangers of going back. To return to Maryland meant putting herself right back into the lion's den. She could be captured, punished severely, and even executed for helping others escape. There were rewards offered for her capture, making her a hunted woman. The laws of the land meant that anyone helping enslaved people to freedom was committing a serious crime. But Harriet's spirit was stronger than her fear. She felt a deep, powerful calling, a voice inside her that told her she could not leave her people behind. Imagine the courage it took to turn your back on safety and willingly step back into danger. It was an act of incredible selflessness. She believed that God had guided her to freedom, and that He now wanted her to be a tool to help others. She would often say, "I had reasoned this out in my mind. There was one of two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other." With this fierce determination, Harriet made her life-changing decision. She would go back. She would become a conductor on the Underground Railroad, not just for her family, but for anyone she could help find the precious gift of freedom. With her mind made up, Harriet Tubman began her terrifying and heroic missions. Her very first trips back into the heart of slavery were not for strangers, but for her own flesh and blood. Imagine the mixture of fear and fierce love she must have felt, knowing that her first journeys as a conductor could also be her last. One of her earliest and most important missions was to rescue her sister Mary and Mary's two small children. Harriet knew the paths, the hiding spots, and the dangers of Maryland like the back of her hand. She traveled at night, under the cover of darkness, moving silently through familiar woods and swamps. Every step was a risk, every shadow a possible threat. She used her knowledge of the land and her incredible courage to find her sister and guide them north. It was a slow, difficult journey. Traveling with small children meant moving even more carefully and finding more secure hiding places during the day. Harriet had to be firm and encouraging, keeping spirits up when fear or exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her passengers. She shared what little food they had and kept them warm. She had to ensure absolute silence, as a single cry or cough could give them away to slave catchers who were always on the lookout. These first successful rescues were incredibly important. They not only saved her loved ones from a life of bondage, but also gave Harriet the confidence and proof that her dangerous work was possible. Each successful trip strengthened her resolve and taught her valuable lessons she would use on many more perilous journeys to come. She was becoming the Moses everyone would soon know, starting with the precious lives of her own family. Harriet's successful trips back to Maryland to rescue her loved ones quickly grew into something much bigger. Word began to spread among the enslaved communities, whispered from one person to another, about a brave woman who kept returning from the land of freedom. They spoke of a Moses who came to lead them out of bondage, just like the Moses in the Bible led the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. This powerful nickname, Moses, was given to Harriet Tubman because of her extraordinary courage and her tireless work. The comparison was perfect. Like the Moses of old, Harriet faced immense dangers. She crossed forbidden lines, defied powerful people, and risked her life every single time she stepped back into the slave states. But she never hesitated. She believed deeply that God was with her, guiding her steps and keeping her safe. This faith, combined with her fierce determination, made her an unstoppable force. Imagine being an enslaved person, living in constant fear, and then hearing whispers of Moses. It would fill your heart with hope, a hope you might have thought was lost forever. Harriet became a living legend, a symbol of freedom for hundreds of people. She didn't just lead them away, she led them through the darkness, guiding them past dangers, inspiring them with her strength, and reassuring them with her unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. This nickname wasn't just a name, it was a promise, a beacon of light in the darkest of times, letting everyone know that their liberator, their Moses, was coming. Harriet Tubman was not just brave, she was incredibly smart and cunning. To avoid the ever-present slave catchers and bounty hunters, who were always looking for escaped slaves and those who helped them, Harriet used many clever tricks and disguises. She knew the dangers well, as there was a large reward for her capture, making her one of the most wanted women in the South. One of her favorite tricks was to travel on Saturdays. She knew that any notices about escaped slaves would only be printed in the newspapers on Monday mornings. This gave her and her passengers a whole weekend to get a head start before anyone even knew they were gone. She would also often leave in the winter, when the nights were longer, and fewer people were out and about. Harriet also used disguises. Sometimes, she would dress up as an old woman, wrapping her face and head to hide her features. Other times, she would pretend to be a frail old man, leaning on a cane. She even carried chickens with her sometimes, making it look like she was just a simple market woman on her way to sell her goods. If she saw a wanted poster with her picture on it, she would pretend to read it, even though she couldn't, to appear harmless and uninterested. She learned to read people's faces and listen for clues. If she heard that slave catchers were in an area, she would quickly change her route. She also used songs to send messages. A cheerful song might mean all was clear, while a slower, sadder spiritual could be a warning of danger ahead. These ingenious methods, combined with her courage, made her an almost invisible force, always one step ahead of those who tried to stop her. Harriet Tubman's clever tricks were just one part of the amazing system that was the Underground Railroad. This secret network relied on safe houses and coded messages to keep its passengers moving towards freedom. Imagine a long chain of helping hands, each link hidden but strong. These safe houses, often called stations, were regular homes, churches or barns, where freedom seekers could rest, eat and hide during the day. They were run by brave station masters, who were white and black people who believed slavery was wrong. These kind people risked their own freedom to help, offering food, fresh clothes, and a safe place to sleep. Sometimes, the hiding spots were in attics, hidden rooms behind false walls, or even secret tunnels underground. To communicate and stay safe, everyone on the Underground Railroad used secret codes. They couldn't speak openly about their work, as spies and slave catchers were everywhere. For example, packages or bundles of wood were code words for enslaved people traveling to freedom. Station masters might be called agents, and conductors like Harriet were often referred to as shepherds or engineers. Songs also played a very important role. Spirituals, which sounded like regular church songs, often carried secret messages. A song like Wade in the Water could tell people to walk in rivers to hide their scent from dogs. Follow the Drinking Gourd was a song that gave directions on how to use the Big Dipper constellation to find the North Star. These codes and safe places were like a secret language and a hidden map, allowing Harriet and her passengers to navigate the dangerous journey, always moving towards the promise of a brighter, free future. With her clever tricks and the network of the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman became a true shepherd of her people. Over many years, she made around 13 dangerous trips back into slave territory, not just for her family, but for anyone who yearned for freedom. She personally guided about 70 enslaved people to safety, and through her example and instructions, she helped many more find their way. Imagine the different kinds of people she helped. There were strong young men, eager to find a new life, and brave young women with babies cradled in their arms, trying to protect their little ones from a cruel fate. There were also older folks, their bodies tired from years of hard labor, but their spirits still burning with the desire for freedom. Harriet never turned anyone away. She understood that each person's dream of liberty was just as important as her own. Leading such a diverse group was incredibly challenging. Babies would cry, risking discovery. Old folks might move slowly or get tired easily. Harriet had to be patient, firm, and resourceful. She carried medicine for the sick and food for the hungry. If someone became too scared to continue or thought about turning back, Harriet would tell them stories of freedom, reminding them of the prize at the end of their long, hard journey. She would never let anyone give up, because she knew that turning back meant a terrible end for them and put the entire group in danger. Her journeys were a testament to her belief that freedom was for everyone, no matter their age or strength. The long journeys Harriet Tubman led were not only filled with hope, but also with constant, grinding hardship. Each trip was a test of endurance, pushing her and her passengers to their limits. They faced not just the threat of slave catchers but also the cruel indifference of nature itself. Imagine walking for days and nights through forests and swamps, with very little food. Hunger was a constant companion, gnawing at their stomachs. Sometimes, the only food they had was what they could find along the way, like berries or nuts, or what kind strangers at safe houses could spare. They often went without enough to eat, their bodies growing weaker with each passing mile. Then there was the cold. Harriet often chose to travel in winter, because the nights were longer, offering more darkness for cover. But winter also brought biting winds, freezing rain, and deep snow. They didn't have warm coats or proper shoes. Their feet would be numb with cold, their fingers stiff, and their bodies shivering uncontrollably. They huddled together for warmth, dreaming of a fire and a soft bed, but knowing they had to keep moving. But perhaps the greatest burden was the constant fear. Every sound in the woods, every distant dog bark, every shadow that moved, could mean danger. They knew that at any moment, slave catchers could appear, bringing an end to their dreams of freedom. This fear was like a heavy weight in their hearts, never truly going away. Yet, through all this, Harriet pushed on, always reminding them of the freedom that lay ahead, her own courage a beacon against the darkness of their fears. She faced every risk with unwavering resolve, for herself, and for every precious life in her care. Even after the incredible work of the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman's fight for freedom didn't stop. When the Civil War began, a war fought between the northern and southern states, largely over the issue of slavery, Harriet knew she still had a vital role to play. Her courage and knowledge were too valuable to keep to herself. She offered her services to the Union Army, the Army of the North, and once again stepped into dangerous territory. Harriet's deep understanding of the land in the South, her ability to move unseen, and her network of contacts among enslaved people, made her an excellent spy. She would go behind enemy lines, gathering important information about Confederate troop movements and locations. Imagine her, moving through the shadows, listening carefully and bringing back secrets that could help the Union Army win battles. She was like a silent, brave shadow, helping the cause of freedom in a whole new way. Beyond her work as a spy, Harriet also became a nurse. She cared for sick and wounded soldiers, both white and black, easing their pain with her knowledge of herbs and her gentle touch. She cooked for them, cleaned for them, and offered words of comfort when they needed it most. Her head injury from childhood sometimes caused her pain and dizzy spells, but she never let it stop her from helping others. One of her most famous acts during the war was leading a raid in South Carolina, known as the Combahee River Raid. She helped plan and guide Union soldiers, leading them to free over 700 enslaved people. This was a huge victory for freedom, And it showed just how brave and smart Harriet Tubman truly was, serving her country and her people in extraordinary ways. When the Civil War finally ended in 1865, and slavery was made illegal across the entire United States, Harriet Tubman could have rested. She had fought bravely as a conductor and a spy, and now her mission to free her people was complete. But Harriet knew that freedom was just the first step. For many formerly enslaved people, starting a new life was incredibly hard. They had no homes, no money, no education, and often no family left. Harriet couldn't simply stop helping. She settled in Auburn, New York, on a small piece of land she had bought. But her home quickly became a refuge, a safe haven for those who needed help. She opened her doors to the elderly, the poor and the sick. She helped them find jobs, taught them how to read and write if they wanted to learn, and simply offered a warm meal and a kind word. She understood that true freedom meant having a chance to build a good life. Harriet also worked hard to raise money for schools for black children, and to care for those who were too old or sick to care for themselves. She often struggled financially herself, sometimes having to sell her own cow or bake pies to make ends meet. Even in her later years, still suffering from the head injury she received as a child, she worked tirelessly. She knew that the fight for justice and a better life for all people was a lifelong journey. Her efforts after the war showed that her heart for helping others was as big as her courage, always reaching out to lift up her community. Harriet Tubman lived a long life, passing away in 1913, surrounded by the people she had helped and inspired. Her story, however, did not end with her last breath. Instead, it grew into a powerful legend, making her a lasting symbol of courage, hope, and the fight for what is right. Today, Harriet Tubman is remembered as one of the bravest women in American history. Her unwavering commitment to freedom, even when it meant risking her own life countless times, teaches us about the power of standing up against injustice. She showed us that one person, with enough determination and a pure heart, can change the world for many. Her nickname, Moses, still rings true, a reminder of her role in leading so many to the promised land of freedom. Her legacy also reminds us of the importance of helping others, especially those who are struggling. Harriet didn't just free people, she helped them build new lives, showing true compassion and community spirit. She teaches us to never give up, even when things are hard, and to always believe in a better future. Her story is a shining example that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the strength to keep going, even when you are afraid. Harriet Tubman's spirit continues to inspire people around the globe to fight for equality and human rights, ensuring that her remarkable journey as the conductor of the Underground Railroad will never be forgotten. She truly is a hero for all time.